So we've got these multiple lines of evidence pointing to a beginning. Now, are there ways to circumvent that with creative theorizing? Yes, there are. But my point has been those ways of creatively theorizing have their own theistic implications.
But we're back to this, how does the mind do it? So if you invoke the mind to bang the Big Bang out of what, nothing, how does a mind create something out of nothing? We're still left with that problem.
Michael Shermer is the publisher of Skeptic magazine. Stephen Meyer is the director of the Center of Science and Culture at the Discovery Institute. And Brian Callen is a popular comic and actor and podcast host. These three guys sit down together to have a discussion about the origin of the universe, the various cosmological models that are currently in play, and why mind seems to be the best explanation for reality itself. There's a lot that goes on in this discussion. There's a lot of really interesting back and forth. Whether you're an atheist, a skeptic, a Christian, anywhere in the middle, you're welcome to join this conversation. I think that you're going to enjoy it wherever you're coming from. Let's get into it.
Human beings have potential, and we were given potential, it seems, imagination and this limitless curiosity to do something. We are moving in some direction. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I win, Stephen. I win. We've changed the skeptic.
Well,
you got to change your.
He made an
your.
affirmation, but in Michael's defense, I think it is perfectly appropriate to say I don't know about a whole bunch of questions.
I love him. That's what I love him for.
And the null hypothesis is the legitimate hypothesis in science. Sometimes we know what's false, but we don't yet have a better explanation. But I want to get back to your point about nudging.
Yeah.
Because this was the point. This was really the point of my book. We've got these major discoveries about biological, physical, cosmological origins, and they're not at all what 20th century scientific materialists expected. None of them thought that the universe was going to have a beginning. Einstein twisted himself into knots trying to get his cosmological constant to have exactly the right value so that he could portray gravity, the outward push of the cosmological constant and the inward pull of gravity to get him exactly finely tuned so he could portray the universe as a static entity. And then lo and behold, the heavens talked back, and the evidence of the red shift and multiple other lines of evidence said, no, the universe had a beginning. If you look at an animation today of the expanding universe with the now 2 trillion galaxies moving outward in that vast, roughly spherical expansion of the universe, and then you wind that animation backwards, what it looks like for all the world is everything converging to a point. And in fact, physically speaking, that's what is going on. You can't back extrapolate any further than that creation event. And now,
that's wild.
You add to that.
What is that theory?
Well, this is the Big Bang Theory,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Okay, and it's based on multiple lines of empirical evidence, astronomical observations, but it's also, there are 2 lines of effectively proof, and I use that very cautiously, but the proofs that were offered by Hawking, Penrose, and George Ellis of a singular beginning to the universe where matter, space-time, and energy begin at a point. And then you have a proof based on special relativity which was not based on isn't based on general relativity and therefore not subject to some loopholes associated with that. So you've got these multiple lines of evidence pointing to a beginning. Now, are there ways to circumvent that with creative theorizing? Yes, there are. But my point has been those ways of creatively theorizing have their own theistic implications. And in any case, the attempt to circumvent what seems to be the most natural conclusion from the evidence and the considerations from physical theory are getting very, very weird. They get. It's like the old cycles within cycles when people are trying to avoid the heliocentric universe. You have, and so you've got the universe from nothing idea conjoined with quantum cosmology. You've got the cyclic conformal cosmology of Penrose. Then you get to get around the multiverse, you've got get around the fine tuning. You've got multiverses. You've got people positing panspermia.
But I'm told they don't do that to get around that. That it's a derivative of the equations.
You can generate a multiverse that way, but its popularity, I think, derives from large part. Leonard Susskind very honestly put it. He said, the multiverse is highly counterintuitive. But without the multiverse, he said, we'd be hard pressed to answer the ID critics. And in any case, even if you posit
What's the ID? Intelligent
design. But in any case, even if you posit a multiverse, it's only plausible if you have universe-generating mechanisms. The two that have been proposed are string theory and inflationary cosmology, and both of them require prior unexplained fine-tuning to generate new universes.
Back to the
So
same
you're back
problem.
to where you started.
Back to the same
so the
problem.
fine-tuning issue has not been solved by materialism, but fine-tuning in our experience is a product of mind, thus the inference to design.
Are you a materialist? If I called you that,
naturalist.
you're a naturalist.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
As opposed to what? Supernaturalism?
I don't know. Well,
Or
what's the
this
difference?
is always my question. So he used the word materialism for naturalism. Okay, so let's
But
say
does that
let's say
argument-
we
does that
That's fine.
argument
I'm
not sway you,
potato,
Michael?
potato.
Yeah.
The
Let's say
natural
we-
world is
but-
naturalists say that the natural
Right.
world is made of matter and energy.
Right.
So
Does that crack your
and
naturalism?
mathematics probably really exists separate from human mind, something like that. Okay, but that's a debatable point. But we're back to this: how does the mind do it? So if you invoke the mind to bang the Big Bang out of what, nothing, how does a mind create something out of nothing? We're still left with that problem, and maybe nothing is the odd thing, and it's too unstable, so something has to exist. You know, Hawking's
maybe that
quantum
thing
foam
is-
fluctuation.
right.
Universes are popping in and out all the time, and so on. But if you say, well, no, the mind is doing that. Well, how does the mind do that? This God or whatever. We're still left with that problem.
Well, I think that's his.
yeah, but sure,
So-
but
so-
we don't
so
know how
the-
our own minds generate the conversation
gonna
that
say-
we're generating right now.
I was-
Not knowing how that's done does not prevent us from inferring that it is being done,
Right.
and that and we can infer that with warrant or with justification when we see features in our observable reality, which we know from our experience are only produced by minds.
All right, so what Dr. Meyer is referring to here is known as the causal adequacy principle. And as the name suggests, it essentially just states that in order to fully understand or explain a particular phenomenon or event, one must appeal to causes that are adequate to produce the effect in question. And there's a few insights from Dr. Meyer's writing that really drive this idea home. He noted that at the close of the 19th century, most biologists thought that life consisted solely of matter and energy. But after Watson and Crick, biologists came to recognize the importance of a third fundamental entity in living things, namely information. Now, here's the real kicker. The information contained in an English sentence or computer software does not derive from the chemistry of the ink or the physics of the magnetism within the computer, but from a source extrinsic to physics and chemistry altogether. Indeed, in both cases, the message transcends the properties of the medium. The information in DNA also transcends the properties of the material medium. My ultimate goal, as those who have watched this channel for a longer period of time know, is not just for us all to stay in this theoretical, abstract realm pontificating about whether or not God exists, but actually to just break through some of these mental obstacles that can sometimes hold people back from an awareness of the academic and intellectually satisfying possibility that God exists in order to take those practical life steps towards a relationship with God, which I've often said on this channel, begins with humility, begins with recognition that we are all participants in the problem of evil, that we need a solution to that problem, that God has provided a solution to that problem through his son on the cross. If you're interested or intrigued by any of that more theological side of things, we have a lot of other videos on this channel going into that. Explore, learn, see if you can get good answers to your questions. I hope that you can. My desire for you watching this video, if you don't know God, is to know God, not just to know about God, not just to have a theory that explains the universe, namely the intelligent designer, but to know God, to know his presence, to know the joy of the Lord. So with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.